So the CIS Top 20, as a real quick recap, it is a framework. There are all kinds of security frameworks out there. We picked to go through CIS Top 20 because we like the logical flow of it. And there are some, if you do it correctly and iteratively, it can build your security in iterative movements that can bring greater and greater magnitude of security in a shorter period of time for a lot less money. And that's really key because time, money's important. You have to spend money on the right stuff, right? You can't have the wrong things because then you waste your budget. You don't get the right return. And time is really important because you have to be able to address a threat when the threat's happening, not later. And so that's where this framework, I think, really does help there. And what we've been doing is going on this journey together where we're just picking some small changes. Jocko Willink is a great, he's a Navy SEAL. He does leadership training all over the country. But one of the things he says all the time is stop trying to change everything. Just change one. Just change one thing a day. And if you do that, that 1% change over time will get you much further than you ever would have been if you had just tried changing everything at the same time. Because you can't multitask those changes. But more importantly, if you try to change too much stuff at the same time and you fix a problem, you won't know what actually fixed the problem. It's basic troubleshooting 101, right? Fix one thing at a time. And that's what we've been doing. It's just every week going through 2 of these controls, doing a small change in your environment, and then moving forward. And the other great thing that these frameworks do is they help change a mindset. They start taking security out of the back seat. And again, it makes it starting to be, kind of philosophically inside your organization, a business driver. So we'll kind of fast forward here to this. So again, very high level overview before we get in these 2. The first 6 are basic controls. They're about knowing yourself. In most cases, like I said before, these are the last ones that people do. However, they should be the first ones you do. In any type of warfare or any type of battle which you are currently in, you have to know yourself first. If you know yourself, you know your weaknesses, you know your strengths, you know things about you that an attacker can utilize, right? Whenever someone attacks you, that's their whole thing. They footprint you first. They try to know you. And when they know you really well, that's when they attack, right? I mean, think about people in your life that can really get under your skin. It's because they know what gets under your skin, right? And the more people know that, the more that they can actually manipulate you. And in cybersecurity, threat actors will learn about you and manipulate you based off what they know about you. So knowing yourself is really important. The second section is this foundational aspect. And what we consider this at Vigilant is this aspect of knowing your attacker and the tactics by which they use to attack you, but also the tactics by which you can use to defend yourself. So that's where you see things like malware, antivirus, things along those lines, right? Firewalls, data recovery capabilities, backups. Notice in this first section, it's all about things like, what are your assets? What software are you using? What's your, maintaining logs and things like that. And then this last section, the last 4 here, is all organizational tactics, right? So there are things like implementing a security awareness training program, software security, incident response management. It's things people normally do first. So many companies go out and buy an incident response plan, and then that's what they do, right? But that's just waiting around for an attack to happen, right? If you do those first 6, you're actually proactive in protecting yourself, or even training your team, or doing vulnerability assessment or pen tests. Some of the last things you should do, because you can know about yourself so much better by doing some of these other things first, and actually get more return on your investment of security than you will on the back end, because it only takes one of your employees to forget their training and to fail, right? So if you have things in place so that when that does happen, and it will, then you're going to be protected and you'll be able to get around it. So today we're going to talk about boundary defense. We spoke about it a little bit last week, but we wanted to go a little bit more in depth just because we were talking about the sonic wall aspects today and last week with VPN, and then data protection. So, so first and foremost, boundary defense. So the first thing to remember, as we saw today, firewalls are not impenetrable. So boundary defense, first and foremost, comes from knowing yourself. So the first thing you want to do when you're doing boundary defense is just learn, right? What do you have out there? So, what firewalls do you have, right? How long have they been up, right? That kind of stuff. Just real simple, easy things, right? What version are they running, right? You should know that. And one thing too, even if you're using an outsourced company to maintain your firewalls, you should absolutely still have someone doing some double checking. I can't tell you how many times we go into organizations and their outside vendors just had not updated their firewalls for years. And so you have to do some general checking, because at the end of the day, you are responsible for that. Whether you use vendors or not, you still chose them and you're responsible. So you need to have some ways to do that and verify. There's some automated ways, but here's the thing. Yes, is it easier to do automation? Sure. And you absolutely should, because it saves you time. But you shouldn't wait to check the versions of your firewalls until you put automation in. You always need to have some short-term plan that stops bleeding right now that can then you can build on top of, right? And that's why prioritizing what you do inside of cybersecurity is really important. So if you don't know your firewall versions or how long they've been up, just go log into them today. As soon as we get off this call, if you're a network admin or you manage your firewalls, or even if you don't, someone else or your team does, just go ask them. Just see. Because that will tell you some really interesting things. And if your firewall hasn't been updated, hasn't been rebooted for a year, which I'm going to tell you, we go in enterprise organizations all the time and that exists, right? So if that's happening, then that means your systems haven't been updated. And it also means threat actors can identify that too. So just learn about yourself, just get to know about it. But it's also important to know is don't put your stake in the ground of what we call a preventative control, right? Most companies use preventative controls as their primary realm of security. So there's a lot of security providers out there that will tie your antivirus into your firewall. Well, what if your firewall gets compromised? Well, now everything's compromised, right? And so it seems like defense in depth, but it's really not. And firewalls are not hard to take over. I mean, it just isn't, right? So as we demonstrated a little bit of today. So, make sure that you're not looking at that firewall as that core of your security system, and that you don't have this paradigm that it's an impenetrable device, right? They're also not great places for detection. They're great for prevention, because you can stop an attack coming through. Let me go ahead and stop the share here. You can stop an attack coming in or out inside your firewall. But what if that firewall is compromised again, right? And if you're doing all detection out of this firewall, right, into like a SIM logging solution or whatever, well, that threat actor can detect or can manipulate what goes to your SIM, so you may not even know it's attacked. But then they can also manipulate your detection. So you always want to be doing detection around this device instead of inside of that device. Now, it's not bad to do inside your device, but you have to understand that if something's a preventative control, then that means the nature at which it does what it does enables it to be attackable, right? And if it's just a detection, then it means it's just looking. And you can do detection in ways that make it invisible to an attacker. It can make it to where they can't attack it, right? And if you can do that, then you're able to actually protect your detection, and you can see when your preventative controls fail. So let me say that again. You want your detection to be separate from your prevention controls. They have to be in today's world. It sounds awesome to have it in your very expensive UTM firewall. I know. I used to be a CISO. I bought very expensive things, and I wanted to have them all in there because they wrapped them in. But you can't do that. Not in today's world. right? There was a time period where it kind of worked, but threat actors have shifted. And, $1 trillion was spent last year in cybersecurity. And it went from 241 days to detect the threat to 315. So that should tell you something. So you want to make sure that you're protecting this firewall in such a way and not seeing it as that impenetrable device. And then last on that is they have vulnerabilities too, right? Just as we saw today. And go back and watch our webinar on vulnerabilities if you haven't seen it already, in patching. Because we had the stigma inside the IT industry that patching will save the day. If everything's patched, you'll be fine. That is not the case, because you're only running patches for fixes that the manufacturer knows about and that they've been able to fix yet. And there's a ton of stuff they know about that they haven't been able to fix, and there's more stuff that they just don't even know about. It's just on the black market. So just know that patching does not fix your system. It will fix most things. Where it really becomes dangerous is when things like zero login are made public, right? Zero login's been around for a really long time. Zero login, right? It's been around for a long time. It just so happens that researchers just finally figured it out in August, right? That we know of. And when it became dangerous is when there wasn't detection or a fix for it. Because now you had all these copycat people, and you had people that weren't as skilled or that hadn't paid for zero logon from whoever figured it out in the first place, started using it. So when you're looking at your boundary defense, first and foremost, just know what it is first. Know what your versions are. And if you don't have automation in there to figure that out, just have someone go log into it, right? Just have someone go log in and just check and just document it. And then go out and do automation. So the next time they need to figure that out, it doesn't take so long, right? Security should be iterative, but you have to start at the basics first. Second, if you do not have, and SIM products aren't going to save you here, right? You cannot base your security of your preventive controls off of what it says about itself. Just think of that from a logical standpoint. We've talked about it on these webinars before. If a system is attacked and owned by a threat, right? The threat owns it. They can control it. It just goes to just pure logic that they're not going to let the logging system have information about that threat. They're going to manipulate your ability to log on them. That's exactly what they're going to do. So just know this is not your answer. You have to have detection around your firewall, right? You have to. And you need to do it in ways that are invisible and that are proactive in detecting. You just have to do it. On top of that, if you're doing VPN, which most companies are, especially in remote workforce land, make sure, and this goes for your cloud firewalls as well, your cloud appliances, same concepts exist. Just because they're in the cloud doesn't mean that they're any less vulnerable to this stuff. But design your VPN infrastructure to where you can connect, you have a different VPN concentrator on the inside of your network that users connect through. So you'd set up a static IP address coming in that points to that VPN concentrator, and then your users would connect here. Now, here's a big key, because security is all about visibility. When a lot of people even do this, they make the default gateway for that VPN user the VPN concentrator. Really, really bad idea. Because now what's going to happen is as users traffic travels into your environment, right? So they're traveling through, and then they come here. What ends up happening is this last hop, because of the way NAT works, network address translation, it changes the originating IP address of the user to the external IP address of your VPN concentrator. So if you're doing detection in your environment, you'll see somebody hacking or attacking systems in your environment. You'll see they're coming from the VPN, but you won't see who they are. And so what we suggest is when you're doing something like this, which is definitely the way you should deploy your firewalls. And if you don't know how to do this, we have a sister company, Vigilant Connect, professional services company. They maintain, manage, do managed firewall, network installation, secure network design, things like that. They can help you get to here pretty quick. And they will update your systems regularly to make sure that they're secure. But basically, what you want to do is you want to make the default gateway. Just set up another VLAN. Make the default gateway of your VPN users this firewall, and then that way, when users communicate into the VPN and they authenticate, all their traffic, the last hop between here and here, will have the VPN encrypted tunnel removed. Now, any SSL traffic or whatever like that they do will still be encrypted. I'm not saying it removes that, but it removes the tunnel. That allows you to see the originating IP, and you don't have to worry about, if your VPN firewall gets hacked, you're not worrying about the logs and things like that. You're able to do detection here and create logs around what's going on inside that VPN. So you can see immediately what system on your VPN is actually attacking your environment. Saves you time. Remember, time is the key to protecting yourself. All right, and if there's any questions, go and ask them inside the chat room. Feel free. I'll answer them as we go along. So if there's, again, feel free to pop that in there. You don't have to just listen. This is a very active thing. I want you to be asking questions because it'll help you just understand this a little bit better and be more secure. All right, so again, recap on that one. Whoops. Boundary defense. Firewalls are not impenetrable. They are not great places for detection. They have vulnerabilities also, right? If you need help configuring those, reach out to us. We can help you do that. On top of that, vigilance services, our managed detection and response technology, and our services, our endpoint detection and response, combined together, that XDR approach can detect these things. Like I said, less than 24 hours. For known things that we already know about, it's instantaneous, but we will design a custom security deployment just for you, because security has to be custom. We'll deploy that very quickly in your environment, get you up to speed on knowing what's going on in your environment, and help you identify when these things are hit. And here's again, vigilant saves you time. Because if you do security well, security gives you time to react, time to move, time to do things before an attacker can do anything to you. That is your most precious commodity inside of the world of security. So, and then go back and watch that patching webinar if you haven't already. So second thing with CIS Top 20. So that was step 12. Now again, nothing massive, right? It wasn't anything and the things I told you about probably won't even cost you a dime if you have internal team. If you have an external team, you need us to help you that won't cost you very much either. It's a really simple change, but it's such an effective change of protecting your organization. It just is. Kind of G.I. Joe, no one's half the battle, right? But it just is. And that one simple thing, the CIS Top 20 doesn't have to be this massively expensive behemoth of a project. It just needs to be small incremental steps towards security in the right direction. And that's what I just told you right there is a magnitude jump forward. And it doesn't cost you very much at all. Even time, right? It even gives you time. So the next thing is number 13 on the list, controls, data protection. Now, a lot of people start with DLP and these massive movements. Again, never, ever, ever solve problems in your organization first with massive movements, because with massive movements become behemoth security programs, and behemoth security programs fail because threat actors are agile. So you have to be agile as well. And if you're able to create an iterative process like we've been talking about to be able to know about your environment and make quick changes, that's when you can win, right? So many people, like I was saying, start with DLP. It's a great thing to have if you can maintain it. But if you go out and buy a DLP technology and it's not wrapped around a service, then it's going to be impossible for it to be effective. And it will become so ineffective that your alerts will be so false that you'll just turn it off and you'll have technology investment lost. The other thing is, if you're going to do it in-house, it is really difficult for organizations to do this. You really need to have a full-time person doing it all the time. So if that is part of your strategy, make sure you hire at least 2 people because someone's going to go on vacation. So you need to have DLP software installed and you need to have 2 people. But even then, if you think about in the timeline of security, it could take you 6 months to deploy DLP in your environment potentially. Depending on, some of them are faster. We have a DLP solution that's really quick and fast to install. But once you do install those, then again, it's back to that team maintaining it. And if it's not being maintained, it's not going to be effective. But there's things you can do on the front end first, just to get to know yourself better. That can help you make that jump forward in cybersecurity without having to do these behemoth things. Now, do you want to do behemoth things? No. Do you want to do great security technology that's agile? Yes. And even secure agile technology can take some time to put in. So you always need to say, what's the problem I'm trying to solve now? What are threats doing against me? What do I need to solve for? You pick a short-term fix for it, something you can do now to give you some time. And once you have time, then move forward with those agile things, right? Get those in place. And what's really cool is security done well increases your time buffer. So you put those agile things in place, and the next time, now you have more time. And it just gives you, it puts you way, way, way ahead of your security program. So first, always start with the who, right? The who is important in your environment because it's who's actually accessing data, right? What you'll find in most organizations is you have access creep. And that means, hey, maybe they were hired into this one role and they moved to another and they moved to another and they moved to another. And as they move through that, those roles, their access was never taken away, it was given or things like that. So a lot of companies don't even know who has access to files or what, right? So the who is important and the what is equally as important. So who has access and what are they accessing? Now, there are auditing tools out there for you to put into so like I said, DLP is good to put in place if you can maintain it. If you can, great, go for it, go do it. In addition to that, you should have some sort of authentication auditing software. So if you have, Active Directory servers in the cloud, you have them on your prem, you have wherever access is, you want to be able to make sure that your tools are robust enough AD-wise, auditing-wise, to be able to identify, all the different places that your files exist. There's robust ones out there that do cloud technologies and software as a service apps, as well as your Active Directory environment. There's some that just do AD, if that's your flavor of what you do in your environment. You can reach out to our Vigilant Connect team, and they can help you do navigate that. If you need help finding software to do that. But even then, right, there are some things you can do today, right, that can just give you an edge, right? They can just start to help you know what's going on in your environment. So again, always think to that simple thing. What's my problem I need to solve today? What's my simple thing? And then secondarily, what's my agile thing that can save me time later? So the first one is just start with AD auditing. If you've got Active Directory in your environment, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem, most companies do, because most companies have a Windows presence. If you're using IPA servers, you can do the same thing if you got more Linux or Mac-based systems, but just enable auditing. It doesn't come enabled by default in Active Directory. It just doesn't. And again, most companies we go into have it turned off, just isn't on. So what do you want to enable, just so you can start to understand and know what systems are there, and who is connecting and what they're connecting to. So first, look at turn on auditing for domain log on and log off. It's usually off by default, so you can go turn that on. And I'll show you some screenshots of things where some things are here in a second, but do that. Take a screenshot of this. Go Google it. Look it up. Be careful what websites you go to, or reach out to our team, right? And log on, log off. Enable audit log on. Enable audit log off, right? File system auditing. audit detailed file shares, audit those file shares, audit who's connecting to them, audit your file systems, right? Your registry auditing, enable registry auditing. So if someone's making modifications to it, and then file manipulation. If you do those things, now it's easy to deploy. It's hard to find information in them, right? So there's a couple of things here. There's drawbacks to this now, right? And it's called native auditing. So one of the drawbacks is there's no predefined audit reports. So there's no audit reports that are going to be able to run. Literally, this stuff just goes into Event Viewer. Now, you should pull this stuff off to a logging system somewhere. But again, with that in mind, remember logs can lie. So just take that with a grain of salt. But create these. Also know that, if a user logs in, to a file or changes something, this will actually create multiple events for that same action because you have, file interaction. So just know that just because it says there's 200 events could mean that there's only, 20 different connections. The next thing is that, they're not going to always give you very specific or detailed information of which object was accessed or changed. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. It's native auditing. There's more powerful tools out there. And then there's no information, not always, about before and after values of a changed object. So, there's not this continuous auditing in the event, right? So you may have to go backwards in time and look at other events to see what changed. So yeah, is it not very agile? Sure, right? Is it better than nothing? 100%. And here's kind of the thing to remember is it's a base level of information. So let me erase this here. So whenever you're doing security, you want to always have these fallbacks. So if this is your awesome agile solution, right? Your file auditing system, right? If this is it, well, you want to also have, these kind of basic controls in place, right? And this is really where you want to start first, because if this goes down or if this is wrong, you have something to fall back to. If this goes down and you don't have those things enabled, then you have nothing to fall back to. And if you have nothing installed, right, then, and you don't have these enabled, you have no information. And so some information is better than nothing. So yeah, is it just like I was talking about earlier, rebooting your firewall, right? Is it sound kind of silly? Sure. But it does change the way a threat actor's behavior acts, right? They're going to look at your firewall and say, well, it was updated yesterday, so I'm going to move on because they probably already updated for this new attack that came out. So same kind of thing here is maybe a threat actor sees your great agile, costly, auditing tool out here, and that's where they stop, right? And so you'll always have this fallback to. The other thing is you can compare information from here and here. There's a discrepancy or because remember, logs can lie. You can compare that information in two different ways, and that can give you some insight into your system. So does it kind of suck because it's a little manual? Yes, but it does give you such a benefit on top of it. So so that's the some ways that you can approach the aspects of enabling that logging. Now, here's a screenshot of or not a screenshot, but some steps. So first, take a screenshot of this. But first, enable security auditing, enable a global access auditing, enable integrity of advanced auditing. Right? Update your group policy objects, verify audit policies, bare minimum. Right? And then verify. Like I said, just run. You can run a really easy, quick command that can say, "Yep, it's on or off, success and failure," and then that's just a starting point for you. Gives you some time. It gives you a fallback point, and then it allows you to have time to go do and put in something more robust into your environment. But if you're not doing anything, at least do this, and there'll be steps forward in your environment. So. Layers really do matter. Now, as CIS Top 20 is concerned, Vigilant fulfills 75% of the controls. we can give you those very agile, very strong solutions really quickly in your environment. And what's interesting about the top 13 that we've already talked about, we fill all but 2 of those. So in a very inexpensive way, you can cover the controls that you need to protect yourself and give you that edge. Now, when you're a customer of ours, you do get all the tools that come with us. So you get our services. We deploy our technology that you can't buy anywhere else. It's proprietary. And you get awesome, powerful portals that give you some views into what's happening inside your cybersecurity environment, helps you make business decisions, helps you understand what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And across your environment, it can even help you troubleshoot other technologies in your environment, and so can our team. And so very powerful tools at your fingertips, all part of our service. Now, one of the really cool things about the way that we approach what we do is we want to be educational aspects. And so we do provide a 5-day, actually we just increased it to 7 days, but a 7-day audit. It's a security audit. We're going to tell you the vulnerabilities in your environment. If you look at this screen, all the things we're looking at, database access attempts, connections, remote desktop attempts, VPN connections, right? Web proxies, outbound connections, outdated communications, all within that 7-day audit. It doesn't cost you a dime. Take you about an hour to install in your environment. Our team takes over, does everything for 7 days. You get to interact with the portal. You get to interact with our team. At the end of it, we'll give you a full threat assessment report, which you can use for compliance purposes and not have to go pay for a vulnerability assessment this year, all to see what we do. And if you decide that you like what you see, you can stay on as a customer of ours. But it's an easy, low-cost way to be able to jump forward in your cybersecurity very quickly and get some insight into what's happening in your environment. If you're up for that, go out to our website. It's vigilantnow.com. You can go ahead and click on that Try Vigilant Now link, sign up for that security audit, just fill that form out, and we'll get to you pretty quickly and get that moving. So thanks again for today. Thanks for joining us. Really enjoyed, had a good time today, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Thanks. Bye.